Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. I'm James Baggott. I'm the founder of Car Dealer Magazine, and today we're talking the very latest on used car pricing with Derren Martin, Director of Valuations at trade price expert Cap HPI. Derren, good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, James. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks ever so much for giving up your time today. So let's just start with those headline figures, shall we? Where are we this month? Are we up or down?
It's up. It's 1% up at the 3-year benchmark figure. And the older you get more of an upward movement, around 2% up at 10 years. But generally positive across the board on ICE vehicles, which I'm sure we'll get into. So that 1% movement up is one of the strongest Februaries we've seen, and that's obviously with some downward movements within those figures. So yeah, we've only had a couple of upward movements in February over the last 15 years. When I was looking back at the figures, one was 2009 for obvious reasons, and actually 2020 before we had heard of COVID, or when we were just about to hear of COVID. It was a strong market then. So yeah, relatively strong and upbeat.
See, there'd be a lot of people watching this finding that news quite hard to believe. I mean, they've been looking at read the headlines in the papers about the economy. Okay, it's not quite as bad as we first thought it was going to be. But what is driving those prices? I mean, it doesn't correlate with what we're reading, does it?
No, I think a lot of it's down to, so in December, everyone was wary. If you cast sort of your mind back then, even we were wary about what's going to happen in 2023. Certainly to start off with, everyone's talking about cost of living concerns, where people putting their heating on, and it's all sort of coming home to roost a little bit. Were people going to go out and buy cars in January and February? And I guess what we all hoped for was that it's a robust market and that it's a necessity purchase and people still want cars. And that's exactly what's happened. But what didn't happen in December was that the dealers didn't overstock. They didn't have a load of cars. So as the market's been strong, they've been going out and replenishing their stocks. And obviously we're dealing with mainly the trade market. So what's been happening at the auctions and for resellers, so remarketers, has been strong demand. And there's been a little bit of a bit of a bun fight for cars, really, especially at that sort of lower end as well. And we always talk about this, but there's a shortage of cars in the market. There's been 2 million less registrations over the last 3 years. So there's not an abundance of stock. It's down to the old supply and demand.
And that stock isn't going to get better anytime soon, is it? I mean, just going back to that economic picture, not looking quite as bad as we first feared. It looks like we're going to dodge a recession for now, at least. And any downturn is probably going to be shallower than we first thought. Do you think this could give actually a boost to prices even further? I mean, if consumer confidence does come back even more, we've still got this supply shortage. Is that going to give a push to used car prices even further?
It could do. We've got to remember that prices went up by nearly 30%, though. So they're already at a high level. They went up by 30% and they haven't come down by much from that. So you have already got high prices of some cars. You've got cars that are close to list. Is there the appetite to push them up further? I think because trade prices have been going up, some dealers have been trying to push their retail prices up as well, and they've not found that easy. There's competition out there as well, online competition and physical. So I think pushing prices up has been difficult. I think it might stay strong. I'm not sure that we're certainly not going to get another 2021 or anything like that where values go through the roof. So, but I think we're in for a healthy market. And yeah, you're right. The cost of living concerns are probably not as bad as people thought. Maybe even so, people that are going out and buying cars, if they are affected by it, they're buying at that cheaper end as well. So that's where it's strong.
Yeah. So just on that subject, what is going up, and where is the market really being pushed?
The sectors that are the strongest are city car and super mini, followed by lower medium. So that's C sector cars. So it is those cheaper ones that are going up by more. Under £5,000 is strong, under £8,000 is strong. But if you look at it by price band, we've actually put average values up all the way up to £30,000. So it is relatively strong across the board. You've got to caveat that it's a 1% movement up. It's not a 6% movement up, which is what we were witnessing in 2021. So it's a relatively strong market. It's not been anywhere near as strong as that crazy time in 2021. But yeah, those cheaper cars are doing the best, but it's generally up to, as I say, up to £30,000. Speaking to some dealers that deal at that real high end as well, they're fairly happy with how things are. So we haven't spoken to a single dealer this month that has not done really well, is not having a really good time since sort of the first week or two of January.
Yeah, we're certainly hearing the same thing. But what about the problem end of the market? I mean, what's going down, Derren? I mean, we've talked in January about electric car prices and the worrying downward spiral they're seeing. Is that continuing? Is that where the market's really getting hurt?
Yeah, there's continuation of a theme with electric vehicles. It's still such a small part of the market, but it's what everybody wants to talk about. And it's been, I must admit, I didn't think I would see values drop by as much in a short period of time. We're talking again that some cars have dropped by sort of 11% this month. We've seen further drops for those cars that dropped in January. We've got cars that have dropped by thousands of pounds since October, November time. We picked up on it really early about that sort of time, and it's dropped ever since. I know we were talking to you about it in October, but yeah, it's continued. Not everything, but really where there's data, trade data, and there are some companies that some vendors that have been almost sort of liquidating their stock, and have been selling cars quite cheaply for EVs. They know they've got more of them coming back, and they've just been sort of trying to get rid of them. So we have seen some cheap cars. We haven't actually reflected some of those really cheap sales, but we have dropped prices again this month. So EVs have come down by an average of 7.5% at 3 years, right, between 5 and 6% at 1 year.
So, and we're talking that this is this month compared to the prices last month, isn't it? So, and
it's month on month, yeah,
month on month, and they fell quite considerably January compared to December, didn't they? So, I mean, give me some examples. Is there some figures there that I'm not wanting to put you on the spot, but some figures there that you can explain of just some of those cars, some of those models which have dropped drastically? We know Tesla has been seriously hurt off the back of those new car price drops, but is that affecting other areas of the electric vehicle market?
Yeah, I think Model 3 has kind of become a bit of a benchmark on pricing, really. So what happens to Model 3? Everyone sort of compares vehicles around that point. Model 3's come down another 4% this month, but that is an improvement on where it's been. And you never thought we'd be saying a 4% movement was almost a stabilization, but it is. And you can see that some of those Model 3s, we've seen them advertised for 25, 26 grand and in retail now. That's a bit of a game changer now. Once you get below that £30,000 mark, they're attractive vehicles, but that's come down by what, £12,000 over the last 4 months. So it's had a real big chunk taken out of it. Some big movements, sort of anywhere between almost sort of 8.5% and 11.5%. Fiat 500, Jaguar I-Pace has been under pressure. Mini Cooper, Nissan Leaf, Peugeot 2008, Volkswagen ID3. They've all come down by big chunks again. Audi e-tron as well. So there have been some chunky movements there, but we have seen a little bit of a stabilization of it over sort of recent days. So I think it's a realignment. It's a realignment going on. You've now got some of those electric vehicles that are cheaper than the petrol equivalents. You look at like a Zoe versus a Clio or something like that. They're now attractive, and I've spoken to 2 dealers this week who have said, asked for advice on going out and buying EVs, because there's no bargains in the petrol and diesel world at the moment, but there are some potential bargains in the EV world.
So do you think this is going to come back then? Do you think these price drops might actually turn the other way at some point if people do go out there and buy again? I mean, some of the dealers I spoke to, I wrote a piece recently, and I think you contributed to it, about this downward spiral of EVs. Some of the dealers I spoke to said they've stopped buying. They're that worried that they're not going out and replenishing any EV stock. Is it that turn that we need to see with cars like the Tesla Model 3 being £25,000? That is pretty much a bargain, isn't it, really? Is that the sort of thing that we need to give the market the confidence and the dealers to go back out there and buy again?
I think what you've got a situation with some dealers is they've kind of got burnt a little bit because they bought them at high prices. They haven't sold them. They certainly haven't sold all of them. If they stocked up with 100, 120, something like that, they might have sold 60 of them. So they've still got them. They owe them a lot of money. So Are they going to go out and buy new ones, even if they're cheap, when they've got a load of them in stock? Probably not, because they need to sell those cars. And as I say, they owe them a fair chunk. So prices have probably come down to reasonable levels, but there's still a little bit of a consumer pushback. Not massive. There are inquiries from consumers, and when they look at those sort of prices from Model 3 and other vehicles below that £30,000, that has to sort of pique their interest. But dealers are still reluctant at the moment because of what's happened over the last few months. But as we go forward, there's more of these coming into the market, and they will go back to buying them.
What advice would you have for dealers that are sitting on stock, electric vehicle stock? Is it a case of they do need to get them sold and sold quickly?
I don't think they need to panic. I wouldn't be saying like absolutely drop your prices dramatically, but if they've been in stock for a while, there's a reason why they've been in stock for a while, and they probably do need to make some adjustments. And certainly some dealers are. So that, yeah, there will be some adjustments needed. That you've got to compare it to sort of petrol and diesel prices, really. And there are consumers that are going in, might inquire about an EV, but they'll come out with a petrol or a diesel car because it's much better priced, and they have to take that into account. And if they've got a lot of them in stock at some point, I mean, usually your best price is the first price you're going to get offered. So you might have to take some action on those.
Well, and looking ahead to the used car market in March, it's a critical time, isn't it? You told us in a recent piece that we wrote that the market hinged on a good March. What do you think is going to happen? Could that be the cause of used car prices falling?
I think March will be relatively strong. I see no reason why consumer demand is going to drop away in March. Easter tends to be a bit of a watershed for when values can start to drop. That's not till mid-April this year. So I think we might have a relatively stable market until Easter time, and then you might see some small drops coming in. So I think March will be positive. You don't tend to get those part exchanges and fleet returns coming back into the market until later in the month. So I think it will carry on as it is for a while, and I would paint a fairly positive picture. So I would expect on petrol and diesel cars for there maybe to be another small uplift during March. That's where I'll be sort of calling at the moment.
And we wrote about longer term values for used cars for the rest of the year recently, and there was lots of different predictions. Some people even said that they think used car prices could go up even further still by about 5 to 10%. I know that you didn't really want to put a figure on it at the time, but what do you think will happen? I mean, even if you don't want to put a figure on it, what do you think the rest of the year holds?
I think, as I say, once you get past Easter, you might get back into a little bit more of a normal market where you'll get. I mean, we've been so hidden from it over the last few years, but values do tend to drop as cars age in their life cycle, get supply and demand dynamics coming into play. Then they will values do tend to come down. So as a car gets older, it's less attractive. There's new ones coming in, that type of thing. So I think we'll get probably a more normal summer, but I think we'll get some strength there as well. I think over the course of the year, I think we'll have a small drop, but that's not anything untoward. That's not a bad thing. So I think it will be. We would normally say values would go down by between 3 and 5% in a normal year. I think it will be at the strong end of that, maybe even slightly better. But I can't see them going up 5 or 10%. I just think they've gone up by enough. They're close to new car prices anyway. Once you look at the hierarchy of ages. So I just think I think as we go forward, it'll be a strong year, and a stable-ish year. Used cars will be robust, but there will be some adjustments down for some.
Yeah, and that new car supply is definitely improving, which is going to have some impact on those used car prices, isn't it? Where, Derren, would you put your money? I mean, in what area of the market do you see as really buoyant at the moment, and where are those cars moving really quickly?
I think I mean, it's not rocket science. To go for that lower end, you can get a couple of city cars that are very reasonably priced for probably the price of an SUV. With cost of living concerns, rail strikes, things like that, people are replacing at that smaller end. They might be downsizing. I'd certainly be looking at that smaller end, but so's everybody. I also do think there's some bargains in the EV world now. You look at those prices; they've come down to a point now where they start to look attractive. And the advice we've kind of given to dealers this week is, yeah, I would probably go for it at the prices that you're seeing, but I wouldn't be overstocking. I would be being careful and just sort of dipping your toe back in and seeing how you go with a smaller batch than maybe you would normally buy. But I do think there's an opportunity now with some EVs to get back in, and it needs to work going forward, because there's going to be plenty of them over the next few years.
Yeah, it had to happen sooner or later, didn't it? Finally, Derren, a little look ahead. You've painted a very positive picture for us there. What does your gut say is going to happen in the short term?
I think, as I say, March will be relatively strong. I think it will. Might see a small upward movement, especially for petrol and diesel cars. There will be probably some EVs that will still need to come down in value a little bit more. Those ones that are close to list price or that look expensive versus their competitors, but still look expensive versus petrol and diesel. So probably a little bit more to come on some EVs, but others will be stabilising. So overall, I'd be predicting a good few weeks ahead.
And you'll be sharing the detail with us, won't you, so we can put that into the story on Car Dealer. Great stuff. Derren, thank you very much for giving up your time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Good to see you. So that's Derren Martin, from the Director of Valuations from Cap HPI. For the very latest on used car prices, you can log on to cardealermagazine.co.uk and click on the used car tab at the top of the page. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Goodbye.